I have a question for you regarding your academic life. Do you spend hours and hours rereading your textbook but still see no results in your final grades? Are you seriously frustrated with your performance in school or university despite spending a load of time and energy in trying to capture the information in your brain? If yes, then this video is just for you. The problem, I tell you, is not on how much time you spent learning, but more about how effectively you're doing so. More specifically speaking, the problem is not in the student, but rather in the study method that he or she uses to study. So, what is wrong with your study method? Studying passively by either reading your textbook or listening to someone else explaining the concept simply lets the information to enter your brain and leave it at the same time. It does not allow you to retain your information because your brain is simply not doing any work and it's not really thinking. This is where the study method active recall comes in. What is active recall? Active recall, as the name suggests, is a study method that tests your brain to check how much information it actually remembers. In fact, you may have done this during the quizzes/exams that you write in school, where you force your brain to remember the answer to that one question that costs the most marks. But now, instead of just allowing yourself to be tested on the day of the test by the teacher, you should test yourself more frequently during your revision periods. The feeling of forcing your brain to remember something is not very pleasant. But trust me, the same way as exercising your muscles makes them stronger, working on recalling the content will improve your brain's ability to remember it. The more you work your brain, the better it becomes in remembering the information. So now that you've understood the study method, here are 5 ways to put active recall into action. Number 1, flashcards. Flashcards are basically sheets of paper, though some may use the digital ones as well, which contain a question on one side and the answer on the other. It is most popularly used by med students to test themselves. I'd recommend you to only use flashcards for memorizing mainly and be very mindful on how many you're making because making them can be pretty time consuming. Number 2, teaching. This method is quite an interesting one and is more popularly known as the Feynman technique. Basically, if you can explain a concept to someone who has little knowledge about it, then it means that you do know it well. To practice this technique, you can call your friends and try to explain the topic thoroughly to them. If you do wish to study alone by yourself, then you can still do this technique and try to explain the content to your stuffed toys or to the walls of your bedroom instead. Number 3, writing it all down. If the above technique gets a bit too much for you, or you just don't feel like speaking, then you can write it all down on a piece of paper. I personally like to draft mind maps to link everything I know about a certain topic from all the different chapters that I have been through. You could also write it all on a whiteboard or a blackboard if you wish. It could be a little messy, but you'll probably end up feeling like a genius. Number 4, attempting practice questions. This study technique is most useful for subjects like maths and physics, which haven't got much theory and are based more on problem solving. The more practice questions you solve, the more you get used to the questions and understand how to think to solve them. Honestly speaking, this is like the best way you can study for these subjects. Number 5, doing quizzes with your friends. This study technique is the one that I have seen many of my classmates do before an exam, and it is great for people who like to study in groups. Grab your textbook and turn by turn, you and your friend or friends can ask each other questions verbally. It can get quite fun studying this way. Furthermore, you can also discover some answers which you yourself may have had no idea about previously, which could have resulted in you getting a better grade. It has happened a lot of times with me before, thus it can happen to you too. Here's the secret to ace active recall. If you really want to ace this method to bring the full 100% results, then you should combine it with another method called spaced repetition. The method is pretty simple but very effective. So basically, the human memory is designed in such a way that we are bound to forget some things after a while. So if you really want to make sure that you do not forget anything, then you need to keep refreshing the information in your brain. That is what spaced repetition is all about. Spaced repetition is a study method wherein you revise the same content again and again after a certain period of time. This can help you to refresh your memory and make sure that you do not forget the content that you need to study. The moment you begin combining active recall with spaced repetition, your grades will seriously change for the better. I hope this video was useful for you. It gets quite painful, I know, when despite spending hours and hours studying, you still don't get that grade that you desperately want. I hope that after watching this video, you improve your study method and do better as a student in school or university.